Okay, I do have my coffee at least somewhat right now. But I'm also recording things even around Sundays. Um, like this one I did last night after work, that sort of thing. But to continue on with the Pantheon thing versus Heroes Unleashed, specifically, because my brain's not trying to fire on all cylinders, but Heroes Fall, right? Because the other video I was mostly listing off things that the other book did wrong. Well, I'll list off what uh, what Morgan does correctly with this. Okay, regardless of how you view superheroes, the basic thing when I think superhero is they gotta be larger than life. They have to be active. Their conflicts have to be, explosive, and that comes to a head in the prologue. You see, like, how this big battle is playing out, and I'll be vague just because I don't really want to spoil much of the story. The other book series, I don't care. I'll spoil some of the story as I go along because, well, CC, you're not making a book that I really enjoy. It's just gonna be blunt. That's why this compare and contrast will be pretty useful, especially for people that are searching for genuine superhero work. Um, as an example, even with Upload Protocol, I didn't start off with all the superhero stuff because I wanted to get the main cosmic element set up first, and then you slowly see everything unfurling to where it's like, oh, okay, here's where Earth superheroes come in, and then a little bit more on that. But honestly, Heroes Fall is much more superhero centric. And that's important. A lot of these superhero prose books, they focus too much on the mundane when superheroes are supposed to be inherently larger in life, and they're supposed to have some virtues. No matter what kind of superhero setup you have, whether it be like a more street level Spider-Man influence type, or they're just kind of like a 9 to 5 hero, and they have some powers on the side where they use it to help people. And in Victoria's case, yeah, she's kind of hiding her power level a bit, but the story will point out why later. But even in the initial chapter that opens with her, like right after the prologue, you could tell she's already good hero material. That's important. She has kind of like a bit of a cruddy life, but she still will put her best foot forward, and she'll still care about the people around her. That's a vital difference. She genuinely cares. You can see that. Unlike Titan, who's an apathetic asshole, that like, oh, I hate my superhero job, but I still gotta do it. Because even that stupid ass Hugo remarks like, oh, he doesn't even stay to sign things anymore, yeah. With Victoria, yeah, she is, she's kind of incognito a bit, but when she saves this girl from, these thugs, because they're in a very bad part of town, it also sets off the contrast. Like, Victoria, even though she isn't, like, 100% on the spandex team just for the moment, she still low-key does things that are very genuine and heroic, which is what I'm looking for in superhero prose. Like, I'm not looking for the boys' breakdowns anymore. I'm not looking for the deconstruction. I'm not looking for the cynical take on superheroes. Because if you want the cynical take on superheroes, watch Snyder. That's all I'm saying. It's like, that seems to be what the majority of people are doing. Watch Mr. Snyder if you want the cynical, Watchmen-like take on superhero work. I'm tired of that. So that's why I'm reading Heroes Unleashed. Because even though they have different kinds of archetypes, they have something for everybody. Kind of like Dark Titan Entertainment, which I will bring them into the fold eventually as well. Because eventually I'm going to stop, focusing on this CC series with the Pantheon stuff, and then I'm going to basically compare two series I like. But yeah, yep. And the one other thing I really like, most of the chapters are only a handful of pages, but there's no wasted words. There's no overabundance of description. They create a very light brushstroke of like, okay, here's the setting, here's some of the stuff around the setting, but you're not taking like 20 pages to describe it, kind of like Wheel of Time. Sorry, Wheel of Time, I don't have time for that anymore. Even though some people still do enjoy it, I'm no longer in high school, so yeah, I don't really read. Like, I might read the 300 to 400 page hitters every once in a while, maybe sometimes longer, but nowadays with all my writing, I don't have time to read extremely robust books. Or if I do, I break it up into smaller, much smaller sections. Oh, man. Okay, then. Okay, one thing. I like the fact that most of the Heroes Unleashed people are not teenagers. Because I've already seen enough, origin stories where it's like, yes, they start the hero off in high school where their powers are developing because of puberty. Like I was saying, yeah, because of like puberty, and that's the onset of when most superhero powers start developing. I like the fact that Victoria is older. I'm usually actively seeking older protagonists. Usually about like mid-20s, maybe late 20s. This is also the reason why I did the prologue angle in my own series, because, I wanted a lot of these characters to stick around longer and be active longer. And usually superpowers does mean your age kind of like fluctuates a little bit in some cases, where you'll stay alive longer. A lot of people usually use that as like a breaking point for some people's relationships, but you see a little bit of this with the New Olympus Saga, with CJ's Superman stand-in, who started off in like the kind of like the golden age of that setting, but he lost most of the people he cared about due to old age, But the main thing is they don't, in each of these books, in Heroes Unleashed and also in New Olympus Saga, they don't start you off with all this stuff, like some of the troubles that some of the superheroes are having, as in terms of like maybe their relationships and things like that. No, they pull you in with the mystery and the fantastical elements first. Because, again, to use my own stuff as an example, the first draft of Uplift Protocol had Eliza waking up from a dream. It's like I'm thinking to myself, like, I care about Eliza, but the reader who hasn't read this stuff yet or knows my brain, or my mind, they wouldn't care about her in the same way. So eventually, the later draft opens up, with the bigger overall conflict instead. And that's what was really effective. Even with this prologue, it opens up with like kind of like the apocalypse for their Justice League, where all these various threads fall apart. You get, I mean, it takes a pretty decent set of writing to basically draw the reader in and be like, okay, here is the basic setup. We're not going to explain everything right now, but it's a good way to get hooks into you. Honestly, yeah, if that's one thing I would bear in mind and keep repeating for books, readers, when you're initially introducing them to a setting, they're not going to really care about the parasocial relationships between characters unless you're specifically making a romance, and that's like the main draw for that reader. For a lot of other things, you gotta reel people in with action pieces, a little bit of lore, but don't do info dump. Like, don't do pages and pages of explanation. Have it play out through the characters, and then, again, my preferred way is to discover things as the character discovers them, and then with a little bit of can't speak this morning because yay allergies, but the little bit of that omnipresent, like third person sense, where you get a little bit from, just the overall, hey, look, who's hanging over the character's shoulder kind of setup. And you get a lot of that. You get a whole lot of information in the prologue. And then it shifts to the 20 years later, so you can see a little bit of the results of that cataclysmic, breakup, basically, through Victoria. Like, the reason why she kind of has to stay low-key, but still wants to help. I appreciate the way Morgan handles teenage characters, because those can be a very tricky thing sometimes. Like you have to balance the kind of earnestness versus, like is this teenager going to be like a little bit of back talk, or are they going to be genuinely thankful? And in this case, yes, Victoria's initial opening salvo of doing regular, what I would consider standard superhero work, which is fine. This is what I expect out of superheroes, whether they're in spandex or not. I want them to save people. And that's what she does for this girl, And even though Mia has a superpower of her own, you get the sense that Victoria has a lot more, like worldview. Her battle prowess is definitely much more up there, even for being like in her 20s. And that's fine. I mean, a lot of times, even to start off with some basic superhero work, yeah, you can have them go up against the standard mook thug, which is how that is set up. And then you basically guide the reader through this world, but she doesn't spend pages describing, Hangman House. She gives little spurts of exposition through the characters while they are actively, going through this environment, and she doesn't keep them still, really. That's important. Like, if you're having characters explain things, don't make it like you're listing off a big list of bullet points. Give it a little bit of personality, and that's what she does, and what I find funny is, yes, they do describe a little bit of food, but it's just a handful of lines, and it's not like a whole chapter like with that frickin' reporter, where it takes him pages and pages and pages to get to, oh, look, here's the little action piece. Like, no, this particular chapter for Hangman House is basically a kind of pit stop before you get to another setup for where it shows, a little bit of Victoria's back and forth with other heroes or vigilantes. And that's what you expect in superhero prose. You can set up their relationships as you go, but do it without being mundane. Like, these people put on costumes and beat up evil for a living. You don't start off with their emotional doubts or their worries. You gotta hook people in with the bombastic, Superheroes are supposed to be bombastic. I can't talk today. It's like, yay. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, there you have it. Like, this, just a little bit of like a little bit of the opening of both books. And again, not everything has to be 1,000-page gorilla. What I appreciate about most of Silver Empire's books is each chapter means something. It's leading towards something. It gives you that little hook at the end to where you keep reading. That's vital. It's not slowed down by frivolous, mundane things. You have to get, again, the reader to care about your setting and characters, but you don't do that with, bunch of mundane talk about their regular civilian 9-to-5 job. If I was to make a reporter character, I would do it like I did with Eddie, make him also a demi, but not have everything, laid out for his reporting career. That's not the interesting part of him. That's the cover. The interesting part is like how he uses his powers to help people, help his crew. And the same thing has been done here with Heroes Fall. How do they use these powers to help people? How do these powers define them? What is the whole makeup of this city after this epic titanic fallout? And I appreciate the fact that Morgan doesn't concentrate on, like, oh, the citizenry's like, oh, yes, we will charge the heroes for protecting our city. Oh, is there property damage? It's like, who the fuck cares about property damage? It's a superheroes book. that's the kind of mundane, stupid shit from our world that I don't care about to see in my fiction. It's, yeah. I guess I could leave it off on that note for right now. But Victoria is a good start to a superhero's rise. You can already see the foundation of her altruistic nature, because she's not going to get paid for saving Mia. She's not basically complaining about, like, oh, I gotta protect more people like Titan. So, yeah, fuck you, Titan. You're a piece of shit. And yes, I am going to be that blunt on this channel, because I'm tired of sad sack mopey superheroes. I am. They're not supposed to be Hamlet in spandex, bemoaning their fate for having been charged with these powers. No. No. You can have low-key heroes like Victoria who eventually emerge to be something greater, and I'll get to that later as we go along in these episodes. And honestly, at this point, I don't think I'm going to finish that Pantheon book, even with Audible's help. So, yeah. One way to leave a good impression versus the way to step off on the wrong foot, especially considering somebody's wheelhouse expectations of this subgenre. Far too many of the superhero books that I have seen out there will start off with the absolute personal issues of that hero. It's just like, I'm not interested because I'm not invested in that hero. How many times do I have to say this? Get me invested in your setting first before you start spelling out some more problems that more personal problems that they might be having. Because by then, you gotta basically make me care. I won't care from the outset. And if I don't care from the outset, it's like, it's not going to really help that book along. That, and you can get a sense of, even from the prologue, like, the big bad that fucked all that up is in there. The hints of it is right in there. It's not explained a bit more until later, but that's the way you hook people. The bad guys, for me, are mostly instigators. They don't need a big dramatic backstory. They don't need human empathy or understanding. Sometimes they just genuinely are a Cobra commander. Something that is a whirlwind of instigation, so the heroes have something to battle against. Have a good day, everybody. Oh, P.S. Victoria is actually likable because she does display some genuine empathy for the city's inhabitants around her. Even if she's not to Superman level to where, she can basically hear everything all at once and things like that, if she sees troubles in front of her, she'll try to fix it or help somehow. Her natural inclinations are superheroic. Bye-bye.